that you might not know about me is that I am a certified barista. Yes, I was trained, I had a test, and then I was given the authority to work the machine at a very fancy coffee shop locally. So when I moved to New York 10 years ago, I was here under an artist's visa, and I was only allowed to do calligraphy for employment. But 6 years later, when I got a green card, I was allowed to get any job I wanted in the States, and I kind of celebrated by getting a job at my local coffee shop. Whenever I went into a coffee shop and I watched them pour that milk into the espresso to make a beautiful pattern, I always felt like I wanted to learn how to do that one day. So this was kind of like a little dream at the back of my head. And then when I got the job at the coffee shop, the motivation was really just to learn how to pour latte art. But over the course of the year, that job became so much fun. The coffee shop was always full of people. It was bustling. It was noisy.
Hot enough. I have to make sure it's hot.
Talking yourself, Rajiv?
Yeah. And then wipe this off. And then steam it. And then go over here. And mix this up. Pour it in. Get rid of these.
Slow, pour, slow.
Okay.
Good, stop. Stop.
Push. Push.
Good, beautiful.
One last one,
Yep.
baby.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at this face. That
Nice. Okay, so. Let's get it in. Now. Slower?
2 more.
I couldn't do it. I was scared.
Okay.
There you go.
That looks beautiful.
Oh, God.
Way to go, Reggie.
And there was just such an energy there. I think I was absorbing caffeine through my skin because coffee was all around us, that I just had this natural high while I was working there. But I did learn some very valuable skills, and they have stayed with me, and they've become kind of a wonderful thing to carry with me whenever I visit people. I can make beautiful cappuccinos and lattes, and I want to share some of that knowledge with you today because, interestingly, I have discovered you don't need a fancy espresso machine to make coffee shop style drinks at home. You can do it manually, and this kitchen is really small, so I cannot dedicate a big chunk of space to an espresso machine in here, but I have the tools to make some really impressive drinks. So before we get started on the actual technique of making those drinks, one of the key things that I believe affects the way you consume your drink in the morning, whether it's coffee or tea or even a juice, is the vessel from which you're drinking. That thing that is holding the drink has a large impact on the experience, and I want to share with you just a few of the different cups that I use. So these 2 cups over here, these are both clay cups. These were handmade by my friend Erica Warnock. She made this beautiful salt glazed espresso cup. Look at that lovely thing. And here is a stoneware latte cup. And when I go to Guy Wolf's and I stay with Guy and Erica, their cupboards are full of things that Erica has made, and Guy. And once when I was looking at some of the mugs, I was coveting them, and she just went down to the basement. She's like, here, have one. She just had a stack in the basement. So I love making a latte in this. Sentimentally, knowing the person that made this makes this special. And I'm sure a lot of you out there have a cup from someone that was into pottery. So those are the Erica cups, I call them. Now over here, I have 2 19th century cups, which I use regularly. This pattern is called Gaudy Welsh. It was made in England probably around 1840 or 1850. And when I'm making a cappuccino, I'll make it in a cup like this. That's the right size for a cappuccino. This cup here was a chocolate cup. So in the 19th century, it became very popular to drink a hot drink made with chocolate. And it would be served in a small cup like this. And the saucer that accompanies it, both are so thin, they're very delicate. So I make a drink called a cortado in here, because this is the right size for a cortado. And there's something about like how you can put your finger in the handle or how you would hold it and just how it feels, that it just makes it so special. When I go to a coffee shop and they have these cups where it's just sort of a stub of a handle with a tiny hole that you can't even fit a chopstick into, I think, how horrible. It's not a pleasant thing to hold, but this is a beautiful, lovely feel in your hand. So that is important, and that's not a joke. Find the cup that you love, and it'll change, like based on what drink I'm having. It's kind of like multiple personality disorder. You know, I feel like, oh, this drink needs this and this drink needs this. Those are the cups. Now, let's get to actually making the drinks, because that's the exciting part. I have a coffee grinder in here because I do make coffee every morning, but you don't have to have a coffee grinder. You can actually get the coffee ground for Stovetop espresso maker at a grocery store or wherever you buy your coffee beans. And then I have this lovely, it's called a mocha pot. I got it from Florence when I was there in September. This makes the espresso. So water goes in the bottom. The water goes to right here, and then I actually just grind the coffee right into this basket. And so I hold it under here. The coffee grinds have to be fine for espresso. Okay, I like to really load it in there, and I tamp it down. And sometimes it makes a bit of a mess. So I get rid of this mess. And now this espresso maker has a beautiful design. It just sort of closes like this. And then that goes on the stove. And I just put it on a low flame, and it's pretty quick. And we will hear when that's ready. Now, while the espresso is being made on the stovetop, I'm going to talk to you about the milk. If you want to learn how to pour designs into the drinks, like for a cappuccino or a latte, it's the consistency of the milk that is vital, which enables you to make a design. If it's too frothy and foamy and has big bubbles in it, you won't really be able to pour a crisp, clean design. You need milk that is steamed and frothed to a very specific consistency. And the coffee shop where I worked, we were taught to steam the milk in a way that created micro foam. So what is micro foam? Micro foam means that there are tiny bubbles distributed evenly through the milk. If the bubbles are really big, you'll get puffy milk, and you'll be able to pour like a cappuccino that you might have had at a restaurant where there's a nice sort of a cap on top of the cappuccino. That's with big bubbles, but you don't want that if you want to be able to pour designs. Now, I don't have an espresso machine. I don't have one of those fancy wands that steams the milk and makes a big screeching sound. So this is what I use to do that. And Erica actually introduced me to this. Erica is part Italian, and she said in Italy, this is how they froth milk at home, just on the stove. So the milk goes in here. This is the plunger. You can buy this online. There are various versions of this, but the version that creates the milk the milk for making latte art is the one that has two of these little sieves. It's like a screen. There are some that have one, but the double screen is what really creates wonderful foamed milk. And this unscrews and comes apart for easy cleaning, which is very important because this contains hot milk and all the milk gets everywhere. There comes a point where you really have to scour everything before you put it away, otherwise this will get gross. So clean it well after every use. Cold water. When milk is heated up, and gets caked onto things, if you use hot water to clean it, it'll just further cake the milk into the grooves. So you use cold water and soap to clean this stuff. I'm giving you all the in-depth information that you're going to need for doing this at home. So that's for frothing the milk. Now, you can froth the milk beautifully and just pour it into the cup, and you'll have a wonderful drink that has a lovely texture. If you want to pour a design into the actual drink, you can't do it with this. If you want to pour like a heart or a tulip or a stacked tulip, you need a pitcher that has a pointed spout. And this is what we would actually use in the coffee shop. This is an industrial quality milk steaming pitcher. At the coffee shop, we would put the milk in here and just steam the milk right in this container. But at home, like if I'm going all out and I'm trying to make a drink with latte art, because I kind of lost my touch with the art part, I use both of these. I froth it in here, pour it in here, and then pour it into the milk. I'm explaining all of this to you now while the espresso is going, because once the milk is heated up and frothed, you don't have a lot of time. You kind of have to work quick. Isn't that a wonderful sound? So, the espresso is done. I'm just going to put this here while I froth the milk. Milk goes on the stove. You don't want it to boil. If it actually starts to bubble and rise with heat and bubbles on the stove, you've heated it up too much, and it'll alter the fat content of the actual milk, and you don't want that. You won't be able to froth it properly. So the milk should have steam coming off of it, but it should not be bubbling and boiling, and it's not quite there yet. But while that's going, I'm going to share some sort of coffee shop knowledge with you. When you look at a coffee shop menu, usually the first thing that you see on the menu is espresso. And espresso means that it's just going to be a shot of plain espresso. Usually after that, the next drink is a macchiato. And a macchiato, macchiare in Italian I think means stain or spot. And macula in Latin means spot. Immaculate means without, that's the im, macula, spot. Without spot, immaculate. So macchiato is literally a shot of espresso with a mark of milk. Like you mark the milk, tiny bit of milk. The next drink you'll see on the menu is a cortado. And a cortado is equal parts espresso and milk. Frothed milk. So half, in this cup, I would put half espresso and then the rest of it frothed milk. The next drink up from that, so we're going from no milk to a little bit more milk, and then more milk. The next drink is a cappuccino. And a cappuccino is espresso, like 1/3, and then 2/3 milk. Usually, that's about the proportion. And in Italy, a cappuccino, the milk is usually frothed much more with bigger bubbles. It's airier, and it's frothed so much with bigger bubbles that you can't really pour latte art the way they froth the milk in Italy. At my coffee shop, the mandate was to always be able to pour latte art, so we didn't froth the milk as much. Okay, this is done. This might have been heated a little too much. I was rambling. Let's see if it'll work. Okay, I'm gonna make the two shorter drinks now. So what I'm gonna do first is let me set up my espresso. So this is a shot of espresso, as you would see it on the menu. And I'm gonna pour the rest in here for the cortado. Okay, and there's that cup is half full of espresso for the cortado. Now, frothing the milk with this device, this is very important if you want to achieve that consistency that's good for latte art. You start with a few long, slow strokes to put air into it. and then you get faster. And as you get faster, just restrict the frothing to the top of the container, because that'll burst some of those big bubbles. Okay? And the milk has sort of doubled in volume now. And there are big bubbles in there. We want to get rid of those. This is how you get rid of them. So I hold my hand over the top so it doesn't go all over the place. But look, those big bubbles are gone. I kind of smacked them out of there. And then we swirl the milk. And we swirl the milk to incorporate the bubbles evenly in the milk. And I'm swirling it by pushing down on the countertop. Don't do it up here because you won't get the right amount of torque. So you have to press down on the countertop and swirl. And now I'm going to transfer it into here. The milk should look like wet house paint. Actually, this could be frothed more. So this is a little too thin. You can froth it again. It's better. So it won't froth as well if you've heated it up too much. If it started to boil, it breaks down the fat molecules in a way that prevents it from being frothed as much. Okay, let's try this. So I pour this in here, tap the bubbles out. Okay, macchiato. We just mark the milk. That's not a great macchiato. If I'm doing it really well, I can make a little heart. Let's try it with the cortado. Pour. Lift up to kind of swirl the milk around. Now let me see if I can make a little heart. No. Okay, but there's a little white mark. So if it was frothed a little more, I would have been able to make a little heart there. So these are the two short drinks. The espresso with a little bit of milk. Yum. And then the cortado, which is half and half. So it's the consistency of the milk that makes the drink like velvety. And that's like very nice. Now, how I was pouring the milk, like it happened so quickly that I can't really slow it down while I'm doing it. But how you pour the milk is very important. I'm just going to demonstrate here because we have leftover milk. You don't start up here because it'll create all this splashing. You start close to, if this was the coffee cup, you start close to the coffee cup and then you pull this up. And if you pull this up and it's going from a high point down into the coffee cup, what's happening is because it's so high, the milk is going to go with force to the bottom of the coffee cup and hit the bottom of the coffee cup and mix automatically with the coffee. So you don't need, that's why we don't have to stir the milk into the coffee, because we're pouring it like this. And that's mixing automatically. What that also does is when you pour from this height, it creates the color, because it's mixing with the coffee, it creates a light brown color that will give you a kind of brown canvas at the top of the coffee drink. So what we do in the coffee shop is, like for a cortado, we would pour like this, and then we would stop, and you stop by kind of lifting the cup up like this abruptly, and then you have a canvas of light brown on top of the drink, and then you pour close. And when you pour close, that's how you make the white mark on the drink. When you pour close, like this, very close, and you push, this pouring close and pushing is what will create this. This is not possible if I'm pouring from up here. The milk will go down. But when you pour close, that frothed milk sits on the surface. I thought I was going to be able to learn how to do this within a week working at the coffee shop. It took me 6 months. And because I haven't been making hundreds of drinks a day like I was, I wasn't able to pour the heart today. But I was able to pour like really nice designs. It takes practice and it takes consistency. So I shared this with my sister in Toronto, And she has a little coffee machine, and she has been obsessed with learning how to pour latte art. She's actually become really good. She can pour like a 3-stacked tulip, which that was a goal for her. And she also thought, she's like, oh, I think I'll be able to get that in a week. It's taken her like 2 years. So it takes time, but if you're making coffee every day, it's kind of a fun little thing, like practice. Now, let's make 2 more drinks. Let's make the cappuccino and the latte. This is how I usually do it. One burner has the espresso on it, one burner has the milk on it, so that both are ready at the same time. You don't want the milk to be ready before the espresso, because the milk really needs to be frothed as soon as it's at the right temperature. I love going to a coffee shop. Like, that ritual is just such a thing that I have enjoyed so much over the years. I read while I have my coffee. Sometimes I knit, sometimes I take my knitting to the coffee shop, or I write in a journal, or I write letters to people. And just the act of leaving and being somewhere else outside the apartment in a public space, but also with a wonderful cup of coffee, that ritual is something that's really important to me. But it's also really nice to be able to make this kind of coffee at home. Like really good coffee with this fancy frothed milk that sometimes has a pattern in it. If it's a good day. If my skills are on my side that day. Okay. Espresso's almost done. I can see it. This is so Italian. Like everybody has one of these stovetop makers. And they don't, in Italy, like I was in Florence for 6 weeks last year, for a month this year, they'll have espresso or a cafe con latte, a latte is the word for milk in Italian. So a latte means cafe con latte, coffee with milk. They will only have milk-based drinks at breakfast or earlier. So when a person in a restaurant in Florence orders a cappuccino like at noon or after lunch, the Italians know that person is a foreigner or a tourist. Like they don't understand how someone could drink a cappuccino in the afternoon. It is solely a breakfast-based drink. And then when they have cafe in the afternoon, it's always just espresso or a macchiato sometimes, but not a cappuccino or a latte. And I didn't know this. So sometimes I have cappuccino in the afternoon, but when I was in Florence, I really wanted to be a local, so I wouldn't drink cappuccino in the afternoon. When in Rome, when in Florence, do as the Florentines. It was nice. It was nice kind of adapting to their way of doing things. And I just started having espresso in the afternoon. Okay, that's done. You're done. Now, we're going to make the cappuccino e una latte. Okay, this is my nice cup for the cappuccino. This is the cup for the latte. So, in here, I'm going to pour that much espresso for the cappuccino. I'll pour the rest in here for the latte. If you are having sugar in these drinks, you should put them in now, because you can mix the sugar into the hot espresso, it'll dissolve, and then when you pour the milk in, if you create any kind of beautiful pattern, you won't be ruining it by adding sugar afterwards. Now, watch how I froth this milk, okay? This was steamed, this was heated properly, it didn't boil. Slow, long strokes, and it does bubble over sometimes. I think I might make a mess. Look, it's doubled in volume. So I added that much air. I doubled the volume of this with air. Tap. Swirl. The bubbles come to the top when you tap too. Tap, 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 tap. Swirl. Now, oh, that, see? It looks like wet house paint, like what you paint your walls with. Shiny and thick like that. That's the consistency that it should be. Okay, so I take my cup in my left hand, the milk in my right hand. I start close, and then I come up to the top, turn to mix the milk in, stop. Now, it's kind of a heart. It's a thought bubble. Okay, let's do the latte. So for the latte, I should have more milk, but I'm just going to use what's in here. There. Okay. This is better. It's better. There. Look at that. Now, it's not perfect because I didn't have enough milk. But doesn't that look like what you would get at a coffee shop? And I did that with no fancy machine. Just with these little things and my stovetop espresso maker. Cafe con latte, lots of milk. Cappuccino, less milk. Cortado, equal parts milk and espresso. And a macchiato, the stain of milk. Coffee shop drinks in your little kitchen. No fuss, no muss with a big machine. Try it yourself and enjoy.